Hey guys, it's Mountain Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about more Modern Horizons 3 predictions. Too many words apparently. Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about cards that I haven't really spoken about or talked about too much regarding MH3 of like what would be good to add to the format to make it better, add different decks, prop up different things. So let's talk about things that'd be interesting that I haven't really spoken too much about before or at all, and things that would be pretty good at least in the current modern. But again, these sets are developed with some amount of lead time, at least like a year or so. So yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what will actually be in the set? But here is stuff that I think would be good, that would be interesting, that would help the format, or at least just make me happy. All right, first starting off, we have Ankh of Mishra. This card is sweet. It's very good against fetch lands, especially in a format dominated or defined by the Ravnica shock lands. Ankh just does a ton of damage. Of course, it's very awkward if you draw it later in the game where it'll basically do nothing or maybe shock them once. Like on the play, turn 2, you drop this, they have to fetch in response, and then like anytime they fetch again, they get lava axed and more if they have to get like a shock land untapped. Pretty sweet card, obviously pretty cool. I mean, I like it a lot. It's not like super impressive because obviously just the play patterns of it, like you draw it in the mid game against some decks and it's just like awful. But if you play it against like the mid range decks, the Omnath style decks, the control decks, very good there, very good there. So yeah, definitely a sweet card. Would be pretty cool to have as a tool to use. So yeah, big fan of Ankh. Okay, and now we have Chain Lightning. This one always, or has always gave me a little bit of pause. I wasn't sure if like, oh, we should or shouldn't, or I should say Wizards or whatever, should or shouldn't reprint it. There's pluses and minuses. I mean, generally, like, I guess you could say this is mostly just a burn card. I mean, I know it sounds a little silly to say since it's basically chain lightning. Chain lightning is lightning bolts like 5 through 8. But some decks, like Murktide, for example, typically doesn't even play the full set of bolts. They play like 3 bolts and then 4 heat. Heat being very good against things like obviously just any creature at all, and then when you have Delirium, can take out Titan and Yawgmoth. That's a big deal. So Chain Lightning probably isn't really going to help those decks out too much, really. I mean, they might play some amount of them because Chain Lightning is another good sorcery in addition to Preordain, right? The not really newly unbanned, but somewhat newly legal-ish Preordain to help give you Delirium. And like in Legacy, sometimes Delver plays like 1 Chain Lightning or something. But again, different format, different rules. But anyways, Chain Lightning mostly like a burn card. Again, obviously it's very broad. It has other applications. Don't really worry about the drawback. It almost never happens. I think I've had a Chain Lightning redirected at me a couple times, maybe, throughout the couple decades I've been playing. Um, yeah, stuff like Skewer the Critics is like the first thing I'm looking to take out because Skewer is extremely awkward, especially with prowess creatures. And it's like, oh, I don't really have anything else to play. I just have to like, it just really screws up your sequencing. Like Skewer is super awkward. I don't like it. I still like something like a Rift Bolt more than Skewer because it's just 1 mana and can easily get around like things like Chalice and stuff. for just 1 mana, but still has a 3 CMC, so they're still good there. Spike again, still good because it's just 1 mana. I think Skewer is probably the one I'd be cutting down on if I had access to Chain Lightning. I mean, outside of maybe cutting stuff like Skullcrack, but Skullcrack still has some amount of utility. You wouldn't really cut Boros Charm for it because it has a little bit of other utility, like making your stuff indestructible versus like Supreme Verdict or whatever. So yeah, I'd probably get rid of Skewer for this small upgrade, but I just a big fan of this card. I think Burn needs a little bit of help. I think that'd be okay at this point, since it basically never gets cards ever. And if, of course, like what we talked about previously, something like Sulfuric Vortex would be a good one too for Burn as well. Vortex, very cool, very sweet. Also very good against the dirtily mid-range decks. So, yeah. All right, next one. All right, how about Orcish Lumberjack? This card is very cool. Very, very, well, I don't want to say slow, but very vulnerable to removal. Obviously, you know, 1/1s are not, don't have a very long lifespan in modern. They, especially if they're valuable, yeah, they suck up removal pretty fast. But Orcish Lumberjack, pretty cool. Lets you, you know, play like turn 1, like you can play your mountain Lumberjack, and then turn 2 play your forest or stomping ground or fetch into a stomping ground or something, and then play like a 5-mana thing on turn 2. That's pretty strong. I think Titania, right? The one that was reprinted in MH3, I believe, right? The commander card, Protector of Argoth, that one. Again, that'd be a good card to ramp into in a sort of pseudo land based kind of thing. That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, Lumberjack plays pretty well with that card. So yeah, there's all sorts of cool stuff you can do, just some sort of like mid-rangey kind of things where you ramp out big fat things. You know, would it be too good? Probably. I really highly doubt it would be too good or even like the best deck or whatever, just because like Lumberjack itself is pretty vulnerable, and like you know, if you get your card removed, right, the one that your payoff or whatever, your Titania or whatever, your Elder Gargaroth or something that you're ramping into, you know, that's a big loss. That's a big loss. So there's a lot of pluses and minuses, but it's a pretty sweet card. It's a pretty fun card, and I think it'd be fine for the format. It'd be pretty cool to play with. You know, just because like these sort of mid-rangey decks, again, just tend to have more points of interaction, tend to be a lot slower, even if you're ramping out big fat thing on turn 2. It's still pretty easy to counter it or binding it or whatever. Okay, now we got Ashen Ghoul, and this is basically another card like Icarid, which I've talked about previously. Ashen Ghoul would be very cool because it's just another good card for Dredge. Yeah, yeah. It is a little weird. I don't know if they really want to put any of these Graveyard Orders Matters cards, because this is like, oh, it needs to have certain number of cards above it, creature cards, whatever, and generally, unless if formats don't have anything from like, I think it's like Mirage or earlier or whatever, because those were the last sets with Graveyard Order Matters, whereas new stuff, like, from my understanding of the rules, at least last time I checked, like any format that doesn't have those kind of things, the order of your graveyard doesn't matter. You can shuffle it even if you wanted to, but any older format you can't do that because you have Graveyard Order Matters cards like Ashen Ghoul. Anyways, it's a cool card. It's an old card. It's a sweet one. Maybe Icarid or something is just better. But it's an old one that I've played with and I like, and it would be kind of neat to see it come back. But like obviously it's understandable if it couldn't, because of that just weird text. Okay, and how about Crystal Vein? This is a sweet card. Obviously, you know, adding any more mana acceleration to the format's always like, ooh, is this a good idea? But I like it. I think it could be maybe interesting in Eldrazi style decks. Um, it's a sweet card because it's an untapped land, comes into play, gives you your colorless immediately, or you can sack it when you play it immediately to get 2 colorless. Again, there's obvious cost, you lose a land, that's a big deal. But it is pretty cool, it is pretty sweet, and I think it's really right about where you want the power level for a lot of this stuff to be. Like there's a big cost, but you can ramp. That tends to be okay generally in modern. Um, so yeah, this is a sweet card. I like it a lot. I think this would, yeah, I don't even know, like outside of like, again, my head always immediately goes to like Eldrazi or something, or Eldrazi Tron, or something similar to that. Obviously you can like turn 1 Chalice, but then like, okay, you need a bunch of follow-up lands or whatever after that to even do stuff. But it is still pretty sweet, pretty interesting. And I think it'd be, you know, I think it'd be pretty cool. It's very open-ended, so there's, you know, some risk, some amount of danger in that. But it is a sweet old card, and I think it'd be something I would definitely consider adding to the card pool. Okay, now we have Serenity, and basically I like this card because it's very good against all sorts of different combo decks or linear decks or whatever. Obviously something like Affinity or Enchantress or any of that kind of stuff if they ever get out of hand. Pretty unlikely, but definitely very cool there. Good to deal with all sorts of stuff. Very, very cheap. And there's even counterplay, right? Because it's only triggers after, you know, at the beginning of your next turn. So yeah, Serenity, very cool. I had to check. It's not reserve list. I kind of thought it was at some point, but apparently it's not. So yeah, Serenity's a good one. Serenity's a good one. Kind of like a white Pernicious Deed in some respects. Definitely a good card to add to the arsenal, especially if they ever wanted to unban artifact lands. I mean, Serenity is very, very good against those for obvious reasons. So yeah. Okay, Mana Severance. This was an old deck and extended about 21 years ago. Played Mana Severance with Goblin Charbelcher. Obviously, you know, if you don't have any lands in your deck, Charbelcher just deals damage equals to the number of non-lands revealed. So yeah, Severance Belcher, you can basically one-shot him. That's pretty cool. But it obviously is really slow. Um, like, you know, turn 2, you play your Mana Severance or whatever. Turn 3, you do nothing. Turn 4, you play your Charbelcher, and then turn 5, you activate or whatever. I mean, that's pretty slow. That's pretty slow. Um, but it would be pretty cool, pretty sweet. It'd be kind of fun to see an old combo deck like that come back. Uh, I'm not, I would be surprised if this was anywhere near oppressive, you know. I mean, but maybe there were other applications for Mana Severance. Just Goblin Charbelcher is the one that just seemed the most like compact, as well as like one that has historical success. So that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. Okay, Tolarian Winds. Yeah, this one is just because like Dredge probably needs a little bit of help. A little bit of help, and by a little bit I mean a lot. They just Dredge is not a good deck for the most part at the moment, and no one really plays it. It's very underpowered. It's been very bad since the Faithless Looting ban. Tolarian Winds is basically only good in Dredge. I don't think I've ever played it anywhere else. Obviously the card is pretty busted, but without Grave Troll, like this is, I mean, maybe fine, right? So yeah, I would say maybe, right? I think this is certainly an option. I think this is definitely one to consider. I haven't, shoot, I haven't played, you know, too much of Modern Dredge, but obviously this and like Careful Study and Breakthrough and stuff were obviously pretty broken in like the extended version of Dredge, you know, 15 plus years ago. So, you know, obviously it's not like this card isn't broken, but giving it one super powerful card doesn't seem like the craziest thing. So this one would be one I would definitely consider. And of course, now we have another combo card. This one, of course, uh, combining very well with Thassa's Oracle. And so Divining Witch, just name like, when you activate it, name Black Lotus, or of course, Wood Elementals, probably my favorite name. Reveal all those cards, and it's like, oh, you have to exile your deck because you don't play Wood Elemental, even though you should, but you don't play Wood Elemental, and you're like, well, I guess we'll just play this Thassa's Oracle. So you kind of have a 2-card combo. It is like 6 mana spread out over 2 turns. You do have to untap with the Divining Witch. It is a 1/1, which means it dies to everything. Um, I guess you even die if your opponent makes you draw a card in response to the Thassa's Oracle trigger. But yeah, I mean, this is yeah, there's a lot of work to make this work, and obviously Divining Witch itself is very, well, not very good, and also very slow. So yeah, I think that might be okay. I think it'd be kind of neat. I mean, again, it's like, oh no, not another combo deck, but it's like another combo deck based around bad cards that just don't do anything by themselves. I'm like not really that concerned with, especially since it can't even like kill on turn 2, or excuse me, not turn 2, turn 3. You have to wait till turn 4 to do anything. So yeah, it's not great, not great. So yeah, I think this would be perfectly fine. Maybe there's some other applications, but it's a pretty weak card and doesn't do a whole heck of a lot by itself. But hey, you can have your pseudo consultation oracle combo in modern. So yeah, maybe that'd be sweet. And last but definitely not least, aura mutation and artifact mutation. Mostly aura mutation, just due to the ubiquity of Leyline Binding. It's in a ton of different decks, and hitting that with a aura mutation, getting your permanent back plus 6 Saprolings is really strong. Very, very good here. Artifact mutation, just another check against the artifact decks, which again, they have been oppressive many times in the past, have been responsible for many different bans, or even just decks that rely on particular artifacts. Being able to kill it, make a bunch of dudes, has been pretty sweet. Also, again, artifact mutation has been a big thorn in the side of prison decks. The like traditional sort of mud or stacks style decks, getting your smokestack artifact mutation, and then getting a bunch of dudes for free, and then being able to tap those to like Tangle Wire and just do all sorts of stuff with it, just getting more permanence into play. Very, very brutal, very powerful against those style of decks if they ever decided to support those things. So Artifact Mutation, again, obviously good against Affinity. Hitting Mirror Enforcer with Artifact Mutation is definitely always fun. But Aura Mutation is the more relevant one, but both are good cards that are good checks to, well, basically any of the new stuff, new decks that could come out, new strategies that could emerge that they want to support in Modern Horizons 3, or of course in the future. So yeah, that's it. That's it. Maybe I'm being a bit optimistic, thinking that it won't be Modern Horizons 3 won't just be like rotate out every deck you're playing right now and then play a new deck. I would like to think that they have a little bit more sense than that, but hey, who knows? Who knows what Wizards is gonna do? So, yeah, here's to here's to being optimistic. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this. It was always fun for me. It took me about 1,000,000,000 years to look through Scryfall, through all the things that were not modern legal, but would be good in the format, not on the reserve list, that whole thing. Anyways, good stuff, good stuff. So, have a good day.